It's time for Pain-Free Living with Dr. Mitchell Yass and the Yass Method for Pain-Free Movement on 1010XL. Here's Matt Hayes.
All right, good Sunday morning, Jacksonville. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Dr. Yass. He's going to give you the tools to live a pain-free life. There are 3 ways to get involved this Sunday morning. You can call us and talk to Dr. Yass, 904-641-1010. You can text your question for Dr. Yass to the text line brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures, 904-641-1010. Or you can watch us on the live stream on the 1010XL YouTube channel. All right, so over the weeks, we've addressed how the Yass method eliminates pain in your back, your neck, your hips, your shoulders, your knees, your feet. We talked about how the Yass method eliminates sciatica and migraines. Now we're going to delve into the myths of pain diagnosis. Bone on bone. You know, you'll go to the orthopedist, you'll get an MRI or an X-ray, and they'll show you decreased joint space and give you a diagnosis of bone-on-bone pain. And you have to accept it. Well, not anymore. Because Dr. Yass is here to debunk the bone-on-bone myth and explain how the Yass method is your best option to eliminate pain caused by muscle deficits. That's right, muscle deficits, not by the all-encompassing, rarely correct, bone-on-bone diagnosis. Good morning, Dr. Yass. Your quick syllabus on the myth that is bone-on-bone and a quick preview of the show today that will include 2 important testimonials.
Hey, Matt. Happy Sunday morning to you and everybody listening and watching on the YouTube stream. This, hopefully, is going to be the moment when a light bulb will go on in thousands of people's minds that X-ray or MRI may not have been fully accurate in showing that you were bone-on-bone. So we are going to be debunking the bone-on-bone diagnosis. We just need the appropriate music to get us into it.
I believe that's bad to the bone, right?
It is, in
right,
fact,
right.
bad to the bone because the answer is, in most cases, it is not the bone eliciting the pain. So here we go. The first thing we want to understand is the mechanism by which you describe the diagnosis is given. An image, either an X-ray or MRI, is performed, and it shows decreased joint space. You're going to see the picture, and they're going to show you the unaffected knee, and then they're going to show you the affected knee, and it's going to show that space between the thigh bone and lower leg bone is smaller, and they're going to say that represents bone on bone. Take the words exactly as they describe, bone on bone. That is to say that you have 0 joint space. Now, the thing to understand
and your
is
bones are moving against each other, which is causing the pain.
Well,
right.
In fact, they can't move.
Right, but
because it's
that's
bone
what they're
on,
telling you.
That is what
right.
they're telling you, is
right.
the pain is coming from the joint because there is no longer any space and the bones are rubbing. Now, this is an incident where an image is being interpreted by the human eye to make that diagnosis. That is irrefutable. Now, let's say that I showed you a picture of someone who was, in fact, bone on bone, 0 joint space, and someone who maybe has a 32nd of an inch of joint space, which is all that would be needed for a knee to function properly, for those bones to be able to glide on one another and allow for normal function. Could the human eye differentiate 0 or a 32nd of an inch? The answer is it's not possible. It is physically not possible for the human eye to differentiate a 32nd of an inch. So by definition, that would indicate that the use of the X-ray or MRI to identify bone on bone simply is not accurate. Okay?
Say that again.
I want to. This is probably
because that's important.
It has to be the saving grace to anybody who's getting a diagnosis, who's just accepting this. The reality is that the mechanism by which bone-on-bone is derived is through the human eye interpreting an image which simply is incapable of differentiating even a small amount of joint space. It's just not possible. And as a result of that, there's no possible way that you could say that that diagnosis is accurate simply via interpreting an X-ray or MRI. Okay? Number two, here's the big one that I want people to understand. If, in fact, you want to determine whether someone is bone-on-bone, we have to look at range of motion, not pain. So as I said, that if you are, in fact, bone-on-bone, that is to say that there is zero joint space. And for any joint to function, one of the bones must glide on the other. That's how range of motion is derived. And there must be a space for those two bones to glide on one another. If you're a bone-on-bone, no joint space, no glide. No glide, no what? No
movement.
Range of motion.
It's common sense. It's literally common sense.
And that's what the Yass method is based on, logic.
So if someone's telling you have bone-on-bone pain, then you should not be able to move anything.
You should see a massive loss of range of motion, and at that end of range of motion, it would be where it feels like a bone's hitting another bone, preventing any further motion. Okay? So, again, it's important to understand.
By the way, real quick,
Yeah.
How painful would that be?
Massively painful. I mean,
way more than say, hey, my knee hurts.
And it wouldn't have anything to do with weight bearing. Like if you were just trying to tie your shoe and you lean down, you're not weight bearing. The range of motion just isn't there for you to bend your knee.
Right.
And the loss of range of motion is what's going to elicit the pain, and it's going to feel like I can't go any further. Okay? So the next one is that discuss physical presentation. It's that if, in fact, we're talking about bone-on-bone and it was to create pain, then it has to have the pain at the joint. So when we talk about knee pain, the vast majority of people who I have treated who were told they were bone-on-bone had pain around the kneecap. The joint where bone-on-bone occurs is at the joint between the thigh bone and lower leg bone. There is a piece of that between there called the joint line. So if I was to press on that spot, that's where you should have your pain if it was from bone-on-bone. The joint between the kneecap and thigh bone is a completely independent joint. So bone-on-bone at the thigh bone to lower leg bone joint cannot cause pain at the joint between the kneecap and thigh bone. If you're willing to accept this, then you're willing to accept that your elbow pain can be caused by arthritis of the ankle. Would you accept that?
No, I would not.
Then you should not accept the idea that being bone-on-bone at the thigh bone and lower leg bone joint can cause pain at the kneecap. Okay? As I said before, I have been doing this for 30 years. I have treated thousands of people scheduled for joint replacement because they were told they were bone-on-bone. Of the thousands I've treated, only 2 presented as being bone-on-bone. Literally had the physical presentation, forget the X-ray or MRI, physical presentation said so, and I referred them for joint replacement. The thousands of others actually presented as having symptoms of muscular causes. I corrected them, and within weeks, they were pain-free. They never got the surgery. They had full resolution of symptom and full recovery, full return of function. So
what you're saying is it's this bone-on-bone diagnosis, which is just the catch-all diagnosis now, is actually rare.
Highly rare, extremely rare. The actual physical presentation of bone-on-bone is extremely rare, and that's the key. What is the Yass method forever going to tell you? Forget imaging. Forget imaging. Imaging is a snapshot in time, and its interpretation is based on the eye. The one thing that you know for sure is that symptoms are real. And the presentation of symptoms determine that. And again, over 30 years and thousands of cases, only 2 times has someone showed up as having bone-on-bone. Okay, so finally, let me just go through the 3 main areas. At the knee joint, the primary place where people have pain is at the kneecap. It's not at the joint line, so we don't want to accept bone-on-bone on that diagnosis. At the hip region, where people are being told they're bone-on-bone, they would have to have pain at the hip joint. I don't even know if I've ever had anybody present as having that. It's usually the surrounding musculature where they have it. So if you're not having it at the hip joint, You can't accept the idea of being bone on bone. And at the shoulder, most people's pain is at the front of the shoulder when they're trying to raise their arm, and that relates to a bicep impingement. It's not the joint, or it's at the back of the shoulder where the rotator cuff exists, and that has strained, causing the bicep to become impinged. So with the shoulder, if your pain is at the front or the back of your shoulder, that's not in the joints, and so therefore you can't accept that as bone on bone as the cause of your symptoms.
Okay, I think you need to explain something one more time. If you are literally bone on bone, there's no movement. So the pain is beyond just your typical, hey, my knee hurts or my shoulder hurts. It's excruciating.
But more importantly, take the pain out of the equation. Either you have a massive loss of range of motion, and not by pain, but literally impedance of the joint going through range of motion, and at that end point, it feels like a bone's hitting another bone, or you're not bone on bone.
That's it.
End
of story. It's not that difficult. It's a muscle deficit. All right. We need to take a break, but when we come back, we'll continue with the bone-on-bone myth. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Dr. Yass, this is a very unique anecdote you're getting ready to set up with our testimonial today. This really shows you the power of how you're reaching out through the radio, through YouTube, online, and people are listening and deciding, you know what? I need to take care of this pain. I'm done with it. It's too long. I've been doing this for too long. I've been going through this pain for too many weeks, too many months, too many years. It's time to do something that fixes it now permanently.
So, obviously, my method is different from anything else that exists out there. And I understand that for many people hearing this for the first time, it's going to be highly unique. And it opens the idea of, well, is it possible that what I've been told and what I followed may not be accurate? And maybe this is more accurate. And so when you hear stories about people who have heard this and they've keyed into it and said, yes, this makes more sense, and this can help somebody. You know me, Matt. You've known me long enough. There's nothing more that satisfies me than knowing that I've helped someone get their life back.
Sure.
As you know, we always talk about, we don't fix pain. We give people back their lives. And so this is just a very unique situation because the person that sought the care was not the person that heard the radio show. It was somebody else that came across this individual
Randomly,
and they'll both be able to tell you the story. And one of the points I want to make is that I really thought this was powerful enough to bring on the show because I want people to understand there's still a lot of really, really good people out there. And there's a lot of people that care about other people, and they're willing to put themselves out to help somebody. And I thought that's why this was so important. So let's bring them on. This is Carla, who actually needed the care, and Mary, who actually heard the show, who actually told Carla about the method and has subsequently benefited.
All right, so let's start with Mary. Mary,
yes.
First off, you were in a Sprouts grocery store, and then take it from there to explain what happened.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We were on the energy/nutrition bar aisle, and Carla was with another lady who turned out to be her sister. And I just overheard them talking, and I talk to everybody in grocery stores, so it's just fun to meet people. So anyway, for the sake of saving time, I learned that she was getting ready to have knee surgery later that month, and she really didn't want to have it because she didn't want to miss any of work and everything. And God bless her for being a teacher. So I had heard your radio show the week before, and I said, hang on a minute, I know somebody who may be able to help you. And I couldn't, for some reason, I wanted to say your last name started with a Z, Dr. Yass. And I'm sitting here looking through Google and everything. And finally I said, the heck with it. I'm calling the radio station. And lo and behold, early Saturday afternoon, somebody answered the line. I got your name. I gave it to her, and I will let her take it from there.
Well, just if I could, just very quickly before we get to Carla. So, Mary, what did I say on the show that seemed to ring true enough to you that you were willing to, tell Carla about it? It's so important. There are so many people listening, and I still think there's some sense of hesitancy because there are emotional impedances that have developed as a byproduct of chronic pain. So I think it's important when people do see the value in this and are willing to act on it to explain what was it. So if you don't mind, could you just explain?
Yes, sir. You had mentioned on the show that of the thousands of patients that you had seen for knee issues, only 2 actually needed replacement surgery.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and just offhand, this is just a sidebar. How did Carla react at first when you said you would like to let her know about this opportunity?
She was interested.
That's great. That's awesome. Okay, thanks, Mary. All right, let's just talk to Carla. So, Carla, why don't you take it from there?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Carla.
Hi, I was so grateful to have met Mary in the store, and she's not only giving me the information then, but that was in last week of June. So she's checked with me every week since then. So I want to appreciate her for that. But once she told me it was a Saturday, early that Monday, I called Dr. Yass's office, made an appointment, and I believe I went in that Wednesday or Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So when I walked in, I had been limping. So this has been an 18-month process where early February of 2022, I had MRI, and they said I had torn meniscus on, I think, 2 sides. So it took them until September to finally get me in for surgery. I had the surgery in September of last year, and I went through 40 sessions of physical therapy.
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry. 40 sessions of physical therapy?
40 sessions of physical therapy
Wow.
at $45 a pop.
Wow.
With my insurance. And so I was limping, I was in pain. And so the day that I went to Dr. Yass's office, I went in with my normal limp. And as I walked in, he was standing to the back of his facility, and he said, I know exactly what's wrong with you. And so my sister was there. She was in front in the waiting area. So he proceeded to do some things that he felt necessary to do. He didn't ask me where it hurt. He didn't ask me to show him anything. He had me get on like the examining seat that he had. He touched one area that wasn't even an area that I was having, that the pain radiated from. But when he touched it, I could feel the pain. And he worked on that area. Then he went up on my side and he touched another area. And he was explaining to me as he was going what had happened, the crystallization from the inflammation and all of that. And that area also was very painful. Again, not areas that I was having pain in when I was walking and things like that. Those 2 areas I didn't even know about. He did those 2 procedures, told me to stand up and walk, and I was amazed, and my sister was really amazed. And my husband's in the background now saying he was too. And from there, he showed me some basic exercises to do when I'm with him, also how to do them at home. He then sent me videos of how to do them at home. If I had the equipment to go to the gym, if I didn't, what equipment I could use at my house and still do it. So the process works. It's continuing to work. We've seen each other 4 times now, and it's continuing to work. I'm feeling better. I'm getting stronger. I went 2 days ago, and we were able to increase some of the weights that I was working on, which shows that my leg is getting stronger.
And in fact, you've gone back to work.
Yeah, I started back to work.
Which you're a 4th grade teacher, so there's a lot of standing involved.
Yes, and walking.
So even with that increased functional requirement, your pain has not increased and your functionality has actually continued to increase, right?
Correct.
So I want people, if they can, to Google a term which is valgus of the knee, valgus. Mary's presentation, which she was told represented being bone on bone, was where her knee, when standing, was about 2 inches inside her hip. Her knee had caved in. That was what was causing a problem. One of her biggest complaints beyond pain at the inner knee was that her knee was giving out. She would weight bear on that knee and it would cave in. Those do not represent bone on bone. And when, Mary, you would agree that one of the very first things I did was check your range of motion, and I proved to you that the left knee range of motion where you were having your pain was exactly the same as the right side. Correct? Carla, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carla.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Carla.
So what happened was I recognized that the problem wasn't bone on bone, just actually going back to me and Matt's favorite topic, the gluteus medius at the hip was weak. And as a result, her knee was caving in. When her knee caved in, she could not weight bear through the knee properly. The weight of her body was not running down to the lower leg. It was allowing the knee to cave in. That's why her knee would give out. The reason for the pain at the inner knee was because a muscle called the medial hamstring was having to take this excessive load. And that's why the pain she had was at the medial knee. The important thing to recognize was that the pain she was experiencing was at the attachment point of the hamstring. That is 2 inches below the joint line. When I pressed on a joint line to confirm that she couldn't be bone on bone, she had no pain there.
Right.
And
Carl, let me ask you this. When you went into Dr. Yass's office and he did the massage, what was your pain when you went in? And then after the massages and the muscles you didn't know were affected, what was your pain level then?
I say when I went in, I was like a 9, which I normally was most days. And when I got up, I literally felt like a 2.
Yep, same with me.
I was really walking all over, the office.
And more importantly, what we did was we also talked about your altered movement pattern that had developed because of your pain, and we also worked on correcting your movement pattern so you would keep your feet hip-width apart, which increases the chance of being able to weight bear through the knee properly. And even after that first session, you told me you could feel the stability of your knee, that in fact your knee was not going to cave in anymore.
Right.
And
that was like I think a Wednesday, and I went to church that Sunday, and immediately several people came up and was like, "You're walking so much better this week."
That's awesome.
That's after one session, Matt. I mean, it was really incredible. And to me, what's exciting, and I always talk about this, and I always talk to you about this, it's lovely to be able to take people's pain away. It's more important to enhance their functionality, to allow them to be able to do what they... In this case, she's a teacher. That's how she makes a living.
Yeah.
She has to be able to do that. And so to be able to do that in just 4 weeks to me is just wonderful. And by the way, I really love the fact that she gets incredible encouragement from her husband, which I think is very, very cool. Anyone in pain is always going to affect those around them. So the fact that her husband has really been a fan and really promoting, she always tells me that he watches her walk and makes sure that she keeps her feet hip-width apart, which I love.
Hey, Carla, before you go, if you don't mind, how has, since you've been to Dr. Yass, how has your life changed as far as not only working, but just away from work as well?
Away from work, I'm more active. I have 2 small grandchildren, ages 3 and 1. And before I started, I was so winded and trying to play on the floor with them or just get up to get their needs. We had them over on yesterday, and I was still able to move around a whole lot better than I was at the beginning of summer when I was first off and was trying to have them over.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I greatly, greatly appreciate both of you coming on and telling the story. And Mary, you're a great person. And
a great friend of Carla, yeah.
And I really appreciate that whatever I said rung true enough for you to reach out. And Carla, I'm just so happy that you listened to Mary and got a chance to benefit from the system, and you're having the life that you deserve. So thanks both for coming on the show.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye now.
Mitchell, to me, this is the genesis of what we've been talking about now for 3 months. Mary just heard the show, okay? It hit in her head. Wow, whatever this guy's saying, this sounds right. Again, we say this over and over, people. It's common sense. It's common sense. We get it. You've been told what should be the way for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of your life, and you think that's the way it should be. It's not the way it should be. So Mary heard that, then overheard Carla talking in the grocery store and said, oh, no, you don't need knee surgery. You need to call this guy. Got Dr. Yass's number, gave it to Mary. By the way, Dr. Yass's number, 904-906-YASS. All right, we need to go to break. We're going to come back and get further into our bone-on-bone myth. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Remember, if you want to call Dr. Yass, set up an appointment, it's 904-906-YASS. That's 904-906-YASS. You can also go online at livewithoutpains.com. That's plural, livewithoutpains.com, where you can actually go in and go into the schedule and set up an appointment on your own. And here's the best part. You can go into the office and see Dr. Yass over on Phillips Highway, or you can do a Zoom segment with Dr. Yass. The same stuff, everything's the same, all the treatment's the same. You're just at your house, he's at his place. Very, very simple. All right, let's go to Charles real quick. Charles, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Dr. Yass. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's going on?
Monday I was at the VA podiatrist because in the morning when I wake up, I have tremendous pain in both insteps and my ankle. So he manipulated my feet, and then he told me I had what he called radiculopathy. And he said, well, you need to Google that. But it sounded kind of ridiculous to me. Have you? So what's that mean?
Radiculopathy is a phrase for a referred symptom based on a nerve being impinged or some structural abnormality of the nerve. It's kind of silly to think that it's ridiculous. All I have to do, if you came into my office and you told me you had pain at the instep under the foot, near the heel, or wherever you're having it, and I press on that spot and you go through the roof, then that tells you that's point tender pain, which is indicating that the tissue I'm pressing on is the tissue in distress. For that to be referred, I'd have to press on that spot, and you say, you know what, it doesn't increase nor decrease the symptom. That would make you consider that it's a referred symptom and possibly ridiculous. I've been treating people for plantar fasciitis, for where they have fallen arches, pain on either side of the ankles due to weakened muscles that support the ankle. And it's always muscular in that nature. And again, here's the home run ball. If you're going to tell me that weight bearing increases your symptom and that as soon as you sit down, the symptom begins to decrease, you got no choice but to agree you got a muscular problem. Because if it's nerve, it doesn't matter whether you're standing, sitting, twisting, bending. The nerve is always going to be in dysfunction, whether it's structural or whatever. And so the pain should be continuous with very limited change in intensity.
All right, we might have a couple more minutes to take a call, 904-641-1010. Before we do that, Doc, I want to go into a few common, I guess the best way to put this is common reasons why you don't actually pull the trigger and call for an appointment, okay? And I want you to respond to them. All right. I've tried everything else and don't know if this thing will really work.
So the whole mindset here, and this goes back to what we talked about last week, which is the psychology of pain, is that once you get to the point where it's no longer about the pain, it's impeding the pain, you've usually gone to reach that point because you've tried a bunch of treatments and they haven't worked.
Right.
And eventually you reach the point of thinking, well, no treatment will work. The point I would try to make to you is that treatments don't work if they're not treating the tissue in distress creating the symptom.
Right.
And so what makes the Yass method different is that it's a diagnostic and treatment model. I do a series of evaluations, including a history and interpreting the body's presentation of symptoms to identify the tissue. If, in fact, it is muscular, which I've shown it to be in 98% of cases over 30 years of treating thousands of people, then we begin to provide the treatment. And the indication that I am correct in my diagnosis is there is a massive reduction in symptom and improvement in function at the very first treatment. That's all you have to wait. This is not one of these things where I'm telling you wait months or years to see if this works. It's the first treatment.
All right, it's a perfect segue into the next question. I'm in so much pain that I'm afraid this treatment will cause more pain.
This is a big one. This is a really heavy psychological burden seem to have. So they've gone, remember what happened at that time? You had your Achilles tendon issue, and you went to the physical therapist, and he tried to do a stretch or pull on it.
He was literally yanking on my foot.
And you went ballistic. The pain was horrible.
Yeah.
What was your immediate reaction? I'm never going back there.
Right, I'm not going back there.
Right. Well, now imagine if you tried that, a chiropractor, or acupuncture, all these different things, and the pain just keeps getting worse. You start to believe there is nothing that can reduce your pain.
Especially if you have 45 physical therapy appointments like Carla.
Right.
45 she had.
Right. So that begins to make a mindset that everything will cause pain. Well, let's be very clear about how the Yass method works. I do an evaluation before I touch you. I will never, ever perform treatment until we do a thorough evaluation, and then I explain to you what I can present to you as the cause of your pain. You don't accept that treatment unless you feel very strongly that what I'm saying is correct. Then I explain how I'm going to do the treatments before I do anything. Now, there might be some massage and stretching, but I am clearly watching you and making sure that it's to your tolerance. The primary treatment component of what I do is exercise. And as long as we're causing one muscle to move one joint in one direction and we're controlling the resistance level, I am telling everybody irrefutably to understand you cannot get pain from this form of exercise. It is literally impossible. I have been doing this for 30 years. Nobody has ever said, oh my God, I was tortured after a session with you. It's not how it works. Beyond the theoretical basis, I'm constantly watching the individual, and then we're constantly talking back and forth to make sure that you will not have pain from this session. There should never be pain with strength training. It's an absolute rule.
All right. Others have told me they will resolve my pain, and they failed. So I can't believe this will work.
So, obviously, a mindset that develops. How many times can you hear from somebody telling you that they're going to do something and it doesn't happen? Why would you ever believe that somebody can make your pain go away? I mean, that's obvious. And these develop, and these are psychoses, man. These are changes in mindsets that actually impede the person from reaching out and finally getting the treatment they need. It's no longer, again, about the pain. It's the mental approach that's developed. And the answer is that, again, listen to what I'm telling you. I'm doing a physical evaluation. I'm taking in history. I am doing what virtually I'm not aware of anybody doing, is what I interpret your body's presentation of symptoms. What your body is trying to tell you, not just me, but what it's trying to tell you is the cause of your pain. So if we identify it properly, we will treat the proper tissue with the proper treatment, and you will be able to get out of pain. I'm not aware of anybody else that can say they actually interpret the body's presentation of symptoms to identify the tissue in distress.
All right, here's a biggie. We've got one more before we go to break. I have spent so much money on other things that have failed, I don't want to spend any more money.
Well, thank God Carla didn't believe in that mindset, because she dropped a couple of $1,000. I just have to tell you about a guy who actually had pain that started, he was a boy, and he fell and hurt his neck. And from that point on, over the next 40 years, he had intermittent neck pain. He's tried physical therapy, chiropractor, acupuncture. He's tried every type of modality that exists, and he's never been able to resolve his pain because it turned out it was muscular. When I asked him, what do you think over the last 40 years that's cost you? He said, it's easily deep into the thousands of dollars. It's heavy, heavy thousands of dollars. You're talking 40 years of treatments. I did one session with him. I was able to connect every one of his symptoms that he described, and they ran from his neck to his back to under his arm, and I was able to show that there was a connecting cause. We did a series of exercises. The guy felt freaking amazing, after that session. He now knows he's got maybe 3 to 4 treatments with me, which are interdispersed. As after the first one, we're just doing follow-ups with the guy, making sure he's doing what he has to do to resolve his pain. And this is going to end the course train. This is going to end it. He will never have to deal with that pain again, and not spend any money on it.
Let's recap real quick. Carla, who had tried everything else and nothing worked, who was in so much pain, she was afraid that this treatment would cause her more pain, who had others tell her that they will resolve her pain, and it failed, so she couldn't believe it would work, all right? She had spent so much money on other things, 45 visits to physical therapists at $45 a shot. That's $2,025. She spent so much money on other things that have failed, she didn't want to spend any more. She comes to you, and now look.
4 weeks later, she's out. It's been 4 treatments. We're lucky if we're going to go one more. Probably not. I mean, we may have one more follow-up to make sure she's now got total control, but she has a life back. And maybe that sounds like a lot to someone, $1,000, but this isn't just ending her pain. She now prevents it from ever reoccurring again. This issue that has daunted her for 18 months will never come back again. That's what you want to understand. If it's a muscular cause, not only do we resolve the cause, we make you understand how to prevent it from reoccurring. This is a true transference of information.
Carla was also, by the way, on the verge of getting knee surgery.
A total knee replacement, she was told, was the only way that was going to resolve her pain.
Think about the stress, the mental and physical stress of that. All right. We need to go to break. We'll come back on the other side and wrap up the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. Okay, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Mitchell, let me go over one more of these mental impedances, I guess is a good way to put it as well. Preventing folks from reaching out, setting up an appointment. By the way, you can call Dr. Yass, 904-906-YASS to set up an appointment, or go online, Live Without Pains, plural, livewithoutpains.com, and set up an appointment either in his office on Phillips Highway or via Zoom session. That's right. You in your house, him in his office, same thing. No difference. Mitch, one of the common impedances is I'm used to getting treatments where I get temporary relief.
Yeah. So I just started a girl. She had gluteal region pain for 3 years. She was a competitive tennis player. She has not played for a substantial period of time because the pain now is preventing her from doing any kind of weight bearing. She went for a chiropractor and got adjustments, and she tried some therapy, and she got some cortisone shots, and every one of these gave her some sort of short-term relief, but the symptom always came back. The problem is that, as she described, the symptom came back more and more frequently and more intensely.
Right.
And the reason is because it was a muscular cause. You're not addressing the muscular cause. The more you have weakness and you continue to have a force requirement from activity that's greater, the muscle's going to continue to strain further and further. You're going to weight bear less and less, and you're going to weaken more. So you can't accept the idea. And it's just a sad state of events where you're willing to say, well, I'm willing to live with pain, and intermittently I'm willing to take a little less pain just so that I don't have that same intensity of pain. That's not really a logical approach.
And that falls right into, real quick, I can't get my hopes up again that this might be able to end.
For God's sakes, there's always an answer to every question. I promise you that if your problem is muscular, I will guarantee you in the first session, you will see a massive improvement in pain and function. You need to believe there is an answer.
Call Dr. Yass at 904-906-YASS. Set up your appointment. Go do it for yourself, for your family. Get out of pain. All right, we will see you next week on the Pain-Free Living Hour on 1010XL.